John never expected a war to start over a piece of cable. When he bought his modest two-story house in the quiet suburbs of Willow Creek, all he wanted was a clean escape from the chaos of the city. Fast Wi-Fi, morning jogs, and weekend grilling. That's all he asked for. And for a while, it was perfect. Birds sang. Neighbors waved. The sun set like a painting behind rows of manicured lawns. It was the kind of neighborhood where the mailman knew your dog's name. Then she moved in. Karen. No one knew her last name. She just showed up at the HOA meeting one night with a clipboard, a heavy perfumed cloud, and a smile that was 99% teeth and 1% threat. She wasn't elected, she volunteered. And by the following week, she was self-declared vice chair of neighborhood aesthetics. No one argued. You don't argue with a woman who carries laminated copies of bylaws in her purse. John noticed her the first time when she stood outside his house for 10 full minutes, just staring. Arms crossed, eyes locked on the side of his home like it had offended her personally. He went out to check. "Something wrong?" he asked. She pointed. "That wire," she said, voice cold. "It's an eyesore." John followed her finger. The cable she was referring to was a professional fiber optic line, neatly fastened along the exterior wall, leading from the box to the upstairs home office, his lifeline to his remote cybersecurity job. It was barely noticeable. "It's my internet line," he explained, a little amused. "I work from home." Karen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, turning away, "some of us care about curb appeal." He thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, a letter appeared in his mailbox. No stamp, hand-delivered. From the HOA. It demanded the unsightly line be removed within 7 days or face formal citation under General Maintenance and Exterior Standards, Section 4, Article 3. John double-checked the bylaws. Nothing about exterior internet cables. He let it go, or tried to. But Karen didn't. Over the next few days, she'd show up at odd hours, pretending to walk her dog, a fluff ball that barked like it hated happiness, while she snapped photos of John's house. He caught her once standing directly in his flowerwood, angling for a better shot. When he confronted her, she said sweetly, "Just making sure we're all following the rules. Wouldn't want to set a bad example." That night, John installed a motion-activated camera over his garage, just in case. He didn't know it yet, but that decision would catch something far worse than nosy photography. Because Karen wasn't done with warnings. She was just getting started. The first time John realized this wasn't just a HOA drama, it was personal, was when he found a neon orange warning tag zip-tied to his doorknob. Notice of non-compliance. Exterior wiring violates community standards. Failure to resolve will result in HOA disciplinary action. Stamped in bold red was Karen's signature, not printed, signed. Handwritten. Underlined 3 times. John chuckled at first, shaking his head. She was relentless, sure, but this was absurd. The line had been professionally installed. Fully permitted. HOA regulations didn't mention a single word about exterior internet lines. He figured maybe she'd drop it after a week. Wrong again. That same afternoon, while he was in a meeting, his doorbell rang. Then rang again. And again. On the 4th ring he answered, headset still on, and found Karen on his porch, clipboard in hand, lips pursed so tightly they looked stapled shut. "Just following up," she said, regarding the wire issue. John sighed. "Karen, I've looked through the bylaws. There's nothing illegal about the line. I need it for work." "I'm sure your company has an office," she replied smoothly. "It's not the neighborhood's job to accommodate your aesthetic neglect." That word, neglect, set something off in him. "Are you seriously trying to dictate how people install their utilities now?" Her voice dropped a register. Cold. Flat. "Some of us care about how this community looks. Some of us work to protect it." Then she turned and walked off his porch like she had just issued a verdict. That night, John checked the footage from his security cam. Nothing strange. Until around 10:42 p.m., a figure walked past his house, stopped, then doubled back. Hood up, low visibility, but unmistakable, those stark white sneakers with the reflective K on the heel. Karen's trademark walking shoes. She lingered by the side of the house, crouched, stared, then walked off, leaving behind a faint glint of something in her hand. A tool. A phone. The camera didn't catch it clearly, but the vibe was unmistakable. It was the kind of footage you watch twice, and then lock your doors. The next morning, John woke up to a fresh envelope taped to his garage door. This one wasn't an HOA notice. It was typed, unsigned, and chilling. Some problems fix themselves. Some need help. Time's ticking. Now it was personal and creepy. He wasn't just dealing with an annoying neighbor anymore. This was beginning to feel calculated, coordinated, like she thought she was playing some kind of righteous game, and he was the villain in her little rulebook. John filed a soft complaint with the HOA, just to document the pattern. Their response, a canned email saying they'd look into it. But he wasn't waiting around. He bought another security cam, pointed it directly at the cable. Something told him the real damage hadn't started yet. And he was right. Because 3 days later, during an important cybersecurity call with federal clients, his internet went completely, violently dead. It happened at 10:03 a.m., right in the middle of a high-stakes Zoom meeting with federal contractors. 1 second, John was walking the team through a simulated threat detection. The next, screen frozen, cursor spinning, then everything went black. No warning, no flicker, no lag, just gone. He stared at the router lights, all dead. He tried hotspotting from his phone. No service. His stomach twisted. Not because of the dropped call, though that would cost him, but because of the timing. This wasn't just a random outage. He threw on a hoodie, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped outside to inspect the line. His breath caught in his throat. The fiber line, his only connection to his work, was hanging loose. Sliced, not frayed, not chewed. Cleanly, surgically cut, as if someone had come with the right tools and a clear purpose. The cut was fresh. The plastic casing still curled outward at the edges, like it had just been snipped hours earlier. He scanned the grass. No fallen branches. No chew marks. No tire tracks. This wasn't weather, rodents, or chance. This was deliberate. His fingers itched with adrenaline as he called the internet provider. The technician, a guy named Lewis, showed up within 2 hours, took one look at the line, and frowned deeply. This wasn't wear and tear, Lewis said, crouching beside the brake. This was done with cutters. Probably something heavy-duty. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were cutting. John's heart sank. Lewis glanced up. "You got cameras?" John nodded. 2. One on the driveway, one over the garage. "Check him," Lewis said grimly. This wasn't random. Someone came for this. By the time John pulled up the footage, his hands were shaking, not from fear, but fury. The first few hours were normal. Neighborhood joggers, the mail truck, a kid on a scooter. Then, at 3:27 a.m., the footage froze. Wait, not froze. A shadow moved in the corner, ducking under the frame of the garage camera. A hooded figure, not facing the camera, but visible enough. A tall frame, fast movements. And the shoes. White sneakers, reflective K glowing as they passed under the motion light. Karen. He paused the footage, leaned closer. The figure stopped right by the junction box. Crouched. Fiddled. Then, in one sharp motion, snap, the line fell. The figure stood, hesitated, then jogged out of frame. John's blood ran cold. He replayed it twice to make sure. Same move, same result. It was intentional. It was sabotage. And worse, it was premeditated. She'd scoped it out, avoided the main camera, worn a hood, come at 3:27 a.m. This wasn't about a cable anymore. It was about control. John called the non-emergency police line and filed a report. Then he backed up the footage to 3 drives, emailed it to himself, and printed the stills. Karen had declared war, and she had no idea just how good John was at fighting back. John didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, lights off, the glow of his laptop casting harsh shadows across the room. Every time he replayed the footage, he caught a new detail: the timing, the posture, the quiet confidence of someone who believed no one was watching. It wasn't random. It wasn't spontaneous. Karen had planned it like a heist. The next morning, he walked into the HOA office with a USB drive in hand and a quiet fire behind his eyes. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "I'd like to file a formal complaint against board member Karen, vandalism, and criminal interference with my internet line." The receptionist, Linda, who always smelled like cinnamon gum, blinked twice, clearly unprepared for the energy John brought into the room. "Sir, a criminal complaint," she said. John slid the USB across the desk. "There's video, from 2 angles. Caught her at 3:27 a.m., cutting my fiber line. You're welcome to see for yourself." She took the drive like it was a live grenade. "We'll escalate this to the board." "I'll be at the meeting," John said, with printed stills and a technician's report. Later that evening, the HOA board met in the cramped clubhouse, a circle of retirees, a few soccer parents, and Karen herself, sitting at the head of the table like a queen at war. John walked in with a manila folder and dropped it on the table. "That's the evidence," he said. "Multiple stills, timestamps, provider report, all pointing to one person." Karen didn't flinch. She sipped from a metallic water bottle and cocked her head like she was already bored. "This is slander," she said, "all sweetness and venom. I was home asleep. I don't even know how to cut a wire." John opened the folder, pulled out a still of the figure crouching by the box. "Recognize those shoes?" She didn't look. "I'm being harassed," she said louder now. "I've been trying to beautify this neighborhood, and now I'm being targeted for it. It's harassment, plain and simple." One board member, an older man with a Hawaiian shirt and a grudge against drama, leaned forward. "Karen, the video's pretty damning." She scoffed. "Are we seriously entertaining this? Over a cable?" John smiled tightly. "That cable cost me $900 in lost income, not to mention a federal investigation into a failed data transfer. That's not a cable. It's sabotage." The room went still. Karen's face twitched, just once. Then she stood. "This is a witch hunt, and if you idiots side with him, you'll regret it." She stormed out, leaving behind a stunned silence. John looked around the room. "So, anyone else had issues with her?" 3 hands went up. One man said quietly, "She tried to have my ramp removed, said it didn't match the paint." The tide was turning, but Karen wouldn't go down easy. And John had the sinking feeling this was just her opening act. Karen disappeared for 2 days after the board meeting. No morning walks, no staged garbage bin inspections, no passive-aggressive sidewalk greetings. Just silence, and for someone like Karen, that wasn't peace. That was a threat. John didn't wait for her next move. He made his. First, he sent the footage and stills to the local police department, along with the technician's report and a detailed account of the escalating harassment. But he didn't stop there. He printed the evidence, all of it. The following morning, every house on the block received a manila envelope with the words, "Your HOA is hiding this." Inside, screenshots of Karen at 3:27 a.m., a copy of the damage report, and a letter from John himself. "If she can cut mine, she can cut yours. If she can silence me, she can silence you. Speak up, or she wins." Within hours, his phone lit up. Text from Mrs. Lindholm, the retired school teacher 2 doors down. She took photos of my grandkids playing in the yard. Said they were a noise concern. Voicemail from Brandon, the single dad on the corner. Dude, she reported my dog for being too fluffy. Said it intimidated her cat. Even Linda, the cinnamon gum receptionist from the HOA office, called after hours. Quiet voice, rushed words. Off the record, she bullied the last chair into resigning. There's more going on than you know. By sundown, John had what he needed, a neighborhood-wide pattern of harassment, with Karen at the center. Then he hit send on the email that would crack everything open. Subject: criminal activity in our HOA. Proof inside. Recipients: entire HOA board, community distribution list, and one curious local reporter from the Willow Creek Times. The email included everything: footage links, witness statements, timestamps, the lot. John didn't write a speech. He wrote a bomb. The fallout came fast. Karen returned on the third day with a scowl sharp enough to cut glass and a clipboard clutched to her chest like a riot shield. Her eyes were wild, her voice louder than usual. "This is all lies," she shouted at no one in particular as she stormed toward the HOA office. "He's defaming me. He'll pay for this." 2 uniformed officers met her at the door. "Karen Blake." One asked. "What? No, you're not serious." He was. "You've been named in a criminal complaint involving intentional vandalism of telecommunications infrastructure. We need to ask you some questions." Neighbors peered from their porches. Phones recorded. Karen tried to walk away. The officers followed. John watched from his lawn, arms crossed. But just as the officers started speaking to her, Karen shouted one last thing. "You don't know what you've started, John. This is bigger than you." The words were strange, off, like she wasn't the only one playing this game. And in that moment, John realized something chilling. Karen wasn't just angry. She was scared of what he didn't know yet. But he was about to find out. Karen's outburst haunted John. "This is bigger than you." She didn't sound like a woman caught in a petty neighborhood war. She sounded like someone trying to stop a dam from breaking. But what kind of dam? 2 days after her police questioning, the HOA suspended Karen from all leadership roles pending investigation. She didn't go quietly. She left furious voicemails on several board members' phones, called John a cyberstalker in a neighborhood group chat, and even accused the HOA treasurer of bribery in an email chain. But something was off. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was unraveling. Then she vanished. No more HOA notices, no bizarre citations, no barking fluffball. Her blinds stayed closed. Her car didn't move. It was as if Karen had dropped off the map, or was hiding from something. John, suspicious and increasingly paranoid, did what he did best: investigated. He had no access to Karen's personal records, but he could pull up HOA public filings. He dug through online meeting minutes, community logs, even utility filings. And that's when he found something strange. A digital folder labeled Project Legacy, Phase 1, External Infrastructure Adjustments. Filed 6 months ago, co-signed by Karen. Curious, John used his security clearance contacts, just enough to verify the folder wasn't typical HOA business. It had nothing to do with beautification. In fact, it seemed classified. When he finally accessed a cached version buried in an archived email backup, his screen flickered before the contents loaded. Inside were documents describing a neighborhood-wide infrastructure upgrade plan, fiber reroutes, underground conduit access, node mapping. Except none of it was approved by the HOA. It wasn't even from the HOA. It was from a private tech contractor, one tied to a defense subcontractor John recognized from his own cybersecurity work, a company known for piggybacking communications gear into private communities. Karen had signed off on it, or more specifically, Karen Blake, former communications analyst, Department of Homeland Security. John's heart skipped. This wasn't about a wire. It was about a hidden network, a buried system, one that someone didn't want him snooping near. And Karen, she hadn't been just a nosy neighbor. She'd been guarding something, sloppily, sure, but with the kind of urgency you didn't bring to garden gnomes and noise complaints. That last outburst made sense now. You don't know what you've started. No, but John was about to. He backed up the entire file, encrypted it, and stashed it in a secure cloud folder. Because if Karen had disappeared, someone else might be watching now. And when you tug on the wrong wire, sometimes the whole web pulls back. John had seen enough classified contracts in his career to know when something wasn't just suspicious, it was buried on purpose. Project Legacy wasn't a beautification plan. It was a covered fiber piggyback system, routed through private properties under the guise of HOA-approved upgrades. And Karen, she'd helped install it, or at least helped protect it. And now she was gone. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. His internet was restored. No Karen. No cryptic notices. No HOA emails. But it wasn't peace. It was the eye of the storm. Then the feeling started. At first, it was small. A car parked across the street, engine idling longer than it should. A man walking his dog at 3 a.m., but with no dog. The same silver SUV passing by 3 times a day, windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. He checked his security cam logs. Strange gaps, brief outages at odd intervals, as if someone was jamming the signal for just long enough to step into a blind spot. John knew surveillance tactics. This wasn't paranoia. It was a warning. So he left. He didn't run. He repositioned. A friend owned a cabin in the woods 2 hours north. Remote, no neighbors, perfect for thinking. He packed light. Laptop, backup drives, printed files, and a legally licensed firearm, just in case things escalated. On the 3rd night at the cabin, the real message arrived. At 2:14 a.m., John's phone buzzed. No caller ID. He answered. Silence. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Measured. You're in possession of files that aren't yours. John didn't reply. You were warned. The woman tried to keep you out of this. She failed, but you still have a choice. A pause. Erase the files. Walk away, or this becomes permanent. The line went dead. John sat frozen, heart thudding like a war drum in his chest. This wasn't Karen anymore. This was who she was scared of. He scrambled to check the cabin's connection. No Wi-Fi. Had disabled it. No GPS on his car. No smart devices. He'd been careful. Extremely careful. But someone had found him anyway. He pulled the curtain aside. The silver SUV was parked at the end of the dirt road. Headlights off. Engine humming. They weren't just watching now. They were waiting. John had options. He always had options. But this was no longer about a petty HOA war. It was about why this buried infrastructure existed in the first place, and who would go to such lengths to protect it. He clutched the encrypted drive in his hand, thumb brushing over the cold metal. If he was going to end this, it had to be now. Before the watchers stopped watching and started acting. John didn't sleep. He sat in the dim glow of his laptop, eyes bloodshot, fingers shaking slightly over the keys as he finalized a transfer to a secure whistleblower drop used by investigative journalists. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. It was survival. The SUV at the end of the road had disappeared by dawn, but the message was clear. They weren't done watching. He packed everything, hard drives, notes, printed stills, and hit the road before sunrise, taking back roads and burner phones, jumping networks, rerouting everything through private VPNs he built himself. By noon, the drop was live. The encrypted files labeled Project Legacy, the hidden infrastructure plan, Karen's digital signature, fiber blueprints, timestamps, HOA cosigns, everything, were uploaded with a simple message. This isn't about bandwidth. It's about surveillance. He sent it to the Willow Creek Times reporter first, then 3 major outlets. Insurance. If anything happened to him now, the story would still break. And then, as if on cue, his phone rang. No caller ID, again. But this time, it wasn't the same voice. It was Karen. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice cracked, tired. "You don't know what you've triggered." "Where are you?" John asked. "They're not after me anymore," she said. "They're after the story. You exposed it. You made it real. And now it's not about us. It's about the program." A pause. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I only cut your line because they were using it. They piggybacked on your node. You were unknowingly transmitting packets tied to a federal surveillance net. Your house was flagged. You got too close. You could have told me. They would have killed me." The line clicked off. By the time the story hit the local news, it had already gone viral. "HOA scandal tied to government surveillance network," read the headlines. The Willow Creek Times was flooded with national attention. Karen's name was all over the reports. So was John's. The HOA dissolved within a week. Federal agents showed up shortly after, not to arrest John, but to debrief him. They didn't deny the existence of Project Legacy. They simply called it decommissioned, but John knew better. Programs like that didn't disappear. They relocated. Karen, for her part, vanished again. Her home was sold under a corporate trust. No forwarding address. No social accounts. As if she never existed. But 1 week later, John received an anonymous envelope in the mail. No return address, just a flash drive. He hesitated, then plugged it in. One file, a single video clip. Karen, sitting in what looked like a safe house. Pale, hollow-eyed. She looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, they didn't stop you. That means you're in deeper than you think. Watch your wires. They're always listening." The screen went black. And then, just for a second, John's webcam light flickered. He didn't move. Because some wars don't end with gunfire. They end with silence. And someone watching, on the other end of the line.